आ रहा है। मेरी खुदाया।
इंसान है, उसने उसको गोली मार दी।
यहाँ पे।
उसने बोला कि ये शायद मुस्लिम नहीं है, उसने उसको गोली मार दी।
Worst attack since Pulwama 2019.
थोड़ा बताइए हुआ। पति को मार दिया।
28 tourists killed in cold blood. Kashmir to Kochi, country in mourning. Terror bleeds India again. Masterminds sit across the border. How will India respond?
Good evening, hello and welcome to our special continuing coverage on the aftermath of that horrific massacre that's taken place in Phelgamm yesterday. How will the government of India respond will be our top focus, and we'll have several special guests joining us, including Farooq Abdullah. But first, let me bring you the big breaking news at this moment. The Cabinet Committee on Security, chaired by the Prime Minister, has just ended. Key security meet has lasted for nearly 2.5 hours. Amit Shah, Dr. Jai Shankar, Rajnath Singh, NSA, Ajit Doval, all part of the meeting. The next step is a Ministry of External Affairs briefing that we expect in a short while from now. So we're getting the details that that meeting has been chaired by the Prime Minister. We're expecting a complete meeting, a complete briefing of the Ministry of External Affairs shortly. So, okay, Piyush Mishra now joins us from the Prime Minister's residence. Piyush, what are you picking up? What was the main focus in terms of how India is expected to respond for now to what happened in Phelgamm yesterday?
Well, Rajdeep, a crucial meeting has just concluded. Remember that the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting went on for 2.5 hours, and after that meeting, one-to-one meeting between PM Narendra Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah also went on for around 20 minutes. Home Minister Amit Shah has just left, and while he was leaving, he was also seen talking with someone on phone. So it was a crucial meeting which is now concluded. It's very short that Defence Minister Rajnath Singh would have briefed about the current situation, because he himself had held 3 hours meeting with the Defence Ministry officials, and remember that Home Minister Amit Shah was on his visit to Srinagar and then to Phelgamm. So Home Minister Amit Shah would have briefed about the current situation there in Jammu and Kashmir. And the meeting has now concluded. All the members have now left. Home Minister Amit Shah has just left. We are also expecting a briefing by Ministry of External Affairs, and most likely a lot of things are going to get clear after the government's first response come in officially, where we are going to hear from a ministry as to how the government will now move ahead as far as its promise of giving befitting reply to Pakistan is concerned. So the meeting is now concluding. We are now waiting for government's response.
Okay, Piyush Mishra joining us. We'll wait to hear what the official response of the Ministry of External Affairs is. But let me bring you all the top developments on that big story through the day. Anger and grief over that ghastly terror attack that claimed 28 innocent lives near Phelgamm, the nation coming together to take a firm stand against terrorism. The top 10 developments: Home Minister Amit Shah visiting the Baisaran meadow in Phelgamm to assess the security situation there. Shah assuring the nation that those behind the attack would be brought to justice. He also met with the bereaved families, many of whom were angry and demanding questions of the government. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has also vowed a befitting reply to those who committed the crime. He said those who planned the ghastly attack will also be punished. Let's go straight now to the Ministry of External Affairs briefing, which is taking place as we speak, to listen into India's formal response.
Ministry of External Affairs. I would also like to let you know that we have pressing engagements following this press briefing, so we'll not be in a position to take questions from you. We can do that subsequently. With that, I give the floor to Foreign Secretary. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Randir. Good evening. Thank you all for your patience and for joining at this relatively late hour. I have some prepared remarks that I'll share with you. And as Randhir said, due to some preoccupations, we'll not be able to take questions tonight. The Cabinet Committee on Security met this evening under the chairmanship of the Honorable Prime Minister. The CCS was briefed in detail on the terrorist attack on 22nd April 2025 in Phelgamm in Jammu and Kashmir, in which 25 Indians and 1 Nepali citizen were killed. A number of others sustained injuries. The CCS condemned the attack in the strongest terms and expressed its deepest condolences to the families of the victims and hoped for the early recovery of the injured. Strong expressions of support and solidarity have been received from many governments around the world, which have unequivocally condemned this terror attack. The CCS recorded its appreciation for such sentiments, which reflect zero tolerance for terrorism. In the briefing to the CCS, the cross-border linkages of the terrorist attack were brought out. It was noted that this attack came in the wake of the successful holding of the elections in the Union Territory and its steady progress towards economic growth and development. Recognizing the seriousness of this terrorist attack, the CCS decided upon the following measures. 1. The Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 will be held in abeyance with immediate effect until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. 2. The integrated checkpost Atari will be closed with immediate effect. Those who have crossed over with valid endorsements may return through that route before 1 May 2025. 3. Pakistani nationals will not be permitted to travel to India under the SAARC visa exemption scheme visas. Any SVAS visas issued in the past to Pakistani nationals are deemed cancelled. Any Pakistani national currently in India under SVAS visa has 48 hours to leave India. 4. The Defence, Military, Naval and Air Advisors in the Pakistani High Commission in New Delhi are declared persona non grata. They have a week to leave India. India will be withdrawing its own Defence, Navy and Air Advisors from the Indian High Commission in Islamabad. These posts in the respective High Commissions are deemed annulled. 5 support staff of the service advisors will also be withdrawn from both High Commissions. 5. The overall strength of the High Commissions will be brought down to 30 from the present 55 through further reductions to be effected by 1st May 2025. The CCS reviewed the overall security situation and directed all forces to maintain high vigil. It resolved that the perpetrators of this attack will be brought to justice and their sponsors held to account. As with the recent extradition of Tahawur Rana, India will be unrelenting in the pursuit of those who have committed acts of terror or conspired to make them possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we come to the closure of this press briefing. Thank you very much.
Okay, strong words there from the Indian Foreign Secretary. The Wagah-Atari border to be closed. All Pakistani nationals who've been given visas to India will have to leave the country by the 1st of May. And the Pakistani Embassy and the Indian High Commission in their respective countries will be downsized. And the Indus Water Treaty will be annulled for now. Pakistani army advises India persona non grata. So India's first steps largely diplomatic, putting the diplomatic heat on Pakistan seems to be now step one that the Indian government has taken. We are going to process all of that. We'll be joined by expert diplomats to look at exactly what this means, what India has done. But the first step, first response after the CCS is to take the appropriate diplomatic measures. Indus Water Treaty, visas, and indeed the Atari-Wagah border, all of them part of what the Indian government has done at the moment. So those are the first steps that have been taken by the Indian government, tough steps that have been taken in terms of diplomacy. But so far the government very cautious to keep the diplomatic steps that they've taken away from any possible security response and armed response that they will give. Joining me now is Gaurav Sawant. Gaurav, it appears that the first step is primarily diplomatic in terms of the response.
It indeed is, Rajdeep, and holding the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance is a very major signal of intent by the Narendra Modi government, and that's a signal that has been spoken of in the past but not actually actioned upon. When you say that Indus Water Treaty is held in abeyance, the signal that goes out to Pakistan is that water for Pakistan is not more important than blood of innocent Indians. And as you very well know, the three rivers in India is an upper riparian state, and water from the Indus water from the Indus River and the three other rivers very crucial for Punjab farmers, Pakistan Punjab farmers, and down the chain. So it's not that you're stopping that water, but you're holding the treaty in abeyance is not sharing data, not sharing information. There are certain other clauses about the treaty which will be held in abeyance for now. Withdrawing the defense attaches, Army, Navy and Air Force, withdrawing the military attaches, reducing staff strength at the High Commissions from 55 down to 30. Remember, it's 110 is the sanctioned strength. So first our High Commissioners were withdrawn, then certain other senior officers were withdrawn. But when you withdraw the naval attache, the air attache, the army military attache and the support staff, that's another signal that is being sent out. SARC visas, everyone's being told you go back, those visas stand annulled. So, you know, when people talk about Rajdeep, that, SARC should be revived, Narendra Modi government has anyway said SARC has been held to ransom by Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror, and unless that is addressed, there is no movement on SARC. So, that's another very major signal that the government sends out.
What about questions over alleged intelligence lapses, the security situation, the unified command situation on the ground? Have those issues been looked at, or that has been left for a later day? The first step is what we've seen today in terms of diplomatically sending out the message to Pakistan.
Rajdeep, that's a pertinent point that you raised, but when the Foreign Secretary briefs on the Cabinet, after the Cabinet Committee on Security, it's a message that's going out to the world. What we do internally within our country is something that perhaps the Home Minister in his briefing and meetings that he's held in Srinagar and with the Unified Command would be addressing at that level. But this is a much bigger thing because it's cross-border terror perpetrated by Pakistan. While we set our house in order internally, the message has to go out to that state sponsor of radical Islamist terror that they have to set their house in order. And it may take time, as the Foreign Secretary pointed out, Rajdeep, whereas a terrorist like Tahawwur Hussain Rana, when India made an effort and managed to extradite him and get him back to India, the other perpetrators, they would also go after, as we ensure, as the country ensures what is to be done internally is handled internally. But while we sort out a house in order, the external threat has to be dealt with in the form of Pakistan terror, Rajdeep.
We'll wait and see what next, what other steps India takes. Coercive diplomacy for now seems to be the first step that India has taken in the aftermath of that terror attack in Phelgamm. Thanks very much, Gaurav Sawant, for joining us with those details. Now, of course, all of this is putting more and more focus on the situation in the Kashmir Valley. Pakistan-sponsored terror has been something that Kashmir has had to live with for more than 3 decades now. Earlier today, I spoke in an exclusive interview to the Jammu and Kashmir National Conference Chief, Farooq Abdullah. His is the ruling party in Jammu and Kashmir. Listen in to this exclusive with Dr. Abdullah. And as the country grapples with grief and anger over the dastardly massacre by terrorists in Phelgamm, I'm joined by a very special guest, the president of the Jammu and Kashmir National Conference, the ruling party of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and multiple times Chief Minister, Dr. Farooq Abdullah joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Farooq Abdullah, there from Jammu. Your first reactions to what happened yesterday, this dastardly attack?
I think it's the greatest tragedy we have faced after what happened and were martyred. And I think this is a disaster. We were thinking peace has returned, and great slogans are made that we have uprooted all these elements. I think those who said these things were completely unaware or uninformed that they still exist.
But the fact is, you're saying that these elements still exist. The truth of the matter, therefore, is, and you've seen it in your times as well, that Pakistan-sponsored terror continues to wreak havoc in Jammu and Kashmir over the years. And what are you therefore squarely blaming Pakistan for what happened in Phelgamm?
Rajdeep, we have faced this for past 40 years. We have continuously said that it's coming from there. Every time. We have never stopped saying that. We continue to say it. And we'll continue to say it till it's ended.
But who is accountable? Who is accountable? What is the solution? From the late 80s now to 2025, at various stages, Pakistan has bloodied the Kashmir Valley. How do you then tackle it? What is the solution, Dr. Abdullah?
That is the solution that government of India has to find. It is they who are responsible for the security and well-being of the people of this nation. It is for them to take the decisive steps to end this nasty things that are happening, and our complete state is suffering. How long do you think we'll continue to suffer?
But there was a sense, Dr. Abdullah, after the revocation of Article 370, that normalcy was returning to the Kashmir Valley. Major infrastructure projects were put in place. There was development. Elections took place last year with a relatively high turnout. Are you saying that this one incident pushes us back yet again? The government of India will say, look, we've actually made some tangible gains on the ground in the last few years.
Please, it is not this only Phelgamm incident. What about what happened in Bilawar? What happened in Jammu regions, in Rajouri, in Poonch?
But you
It's
see,
not only Phelgamm. It's been continuously happening.
yes, Dr. Abdullah, but the truth of the matter is, let's be clear, you were Chief Minister for several years. At that stage, nothing could be resolved. Now you've got the Modi government. Earlier, you've had Vajpayee's government, Manmohan Singh's government. No government, no individual government, whether in Srinagar or in Delhi, sir, has been able to find a silver bullet magic solution to end cross-border terrorism, faced with a country like Pakistan that seems determined to bleed us in Jammu and Kashmir.
They have been bleeding us slowly and steadily. There's nothing new about it. For 40 years, they've been bleeding us. And they will continue to bleed us unless we start thinking and think positively of how to get rid of this.
What do you mean by think positively? In the past, you've been among the advocates for a dialogue with Pakistan. There are others who believe the time for dialogue is long over. Now you need to have some very concrete action, possibly even across the border. The surgical strikes have taken place. There was Balakot. What, according to you, is the positive action that needs to be taken?
Let me tell you, Rajdeep, I am not in command. And I'm not going to suggest anything to Government of India. They don't need my suggestion. I think they are intelligent enough to decide themselves. But I'll definitely like to tell them, you can't have dual control in Kashmir. Whereas Lieutenant Governor controls security, controls police, he controls the unified command. The state government does not have any say in these things. Imagine, we are elected government. An elected government is never brought into discussions when security matters are discussed. How do you think you will resolve these problems unless you have the state government and the people to sit with you and decide how to get on?
I'm told today there was a security review meeting and Omar Abdullah was not invited for that meeting. Are you saying, therefore, that Omar Abdullah and the National Conference government have no responsibility?
Deep. Last time when the Home Minister came, only a week ago, he had security meeting. Chief Minister was not in it. It's only this thing, when this time this happened, Chief Minister was called into the meeting. Let's be very straight about it.
But therefore, are you saying the Chief Minister bears no accountability, no responsibility?
It's not a question of responsibility. You have taken him out of the responsibility. It's not we. We still are fighting. We are still bleeding. But the first person who died today in that act was an ordinary horseman, Saeed Hussain, poor fellow. He was the first man who jumped at this terrorist, tried to grab his gun, and lost his life. He said, this is not right, what you're doing. He had that courage and determination to fight these people. We are not running away from it. We are going to fight them.
But the truth of the matter is, these terrorists singled out Hindus, targeted them, and thereby want to drive a wedge between Hindus and Muslims. These were targeted killings, Dr. Abdullah.
Rajdeep, it's not today only. They've always done before also the same thing. They targeted Hindus to create a wedge, which has now been playing heavily in the country. Heavily. We see how much division is taking place between Hindus and Muslims because of Pakistan's actions.
Are you going to put all the blame only on Pakistan today? What about Kashmir itself? The fact is that there is a belief that there were some local Kashmiris possibly also involved in this operation.
Who says no? Who says no? Were they not in when it started in 89? There are people. There will be people. They have to be dealt with.
So you're saying there are elements within the valley who are patronized by Pakistan. There are elements across the border who have entered and bloodied the valley. You are calling for stern action against all of them. You will support any action that Narendra Modi government takes. Am I correct?
Rajdeep, we all want to live in peace and harmony and brotherhood. Take action which will try to bring that brotherhood back in our nation at all costs.
Yes, sir, but you will understand the anger and frustration of people because 35 years have elapsed from the time when you were Chief Minister and Kashmiri Pandits were driven out to today what we've seen in Phelgamm. There have been repeated attempts made by Pakistan to bloody the soil of Kashmir, and yet nothing seems to change. That anger and frustration, surely you will share of the people of this country.
You know, today, for the first time after 35 years, whole Kashmir has risen up against this. Do you see this? It's a major change. Major change. They don't want anything to do with Pakistan. We are part of the nation called India, and we will remain part of this nation called India.
Do you see, therefore, anger and frustration building up in Kashmir against Pakistan and indeed all those who use the gun to resolve issues? You believe that Kashmir has reached a tipping point?
Sir Rajiv, haven't you seen the anger in the valley today? Have you ever seen this before? Have you ever seen this? There's a complete shift. And I'm proud of that shift.
Will it last? In your view, will it last? Will it be able to sustain itself?
It will last so long as we live in brotherhood and don't create further communal tension. This will last.
Do you have a message for the Pakistani army chief who only last week said Hindus and Muslims cannot live together and emphasized the two-nation theory? Do you have a message for General Mir today?
I would like to tell the general, we never accepted two-nation theory. God is creator of everyone. Whether he's a Hindu, he's a Muslim, he's a Sikh, he's a Christian, or he's a Buddhist or anything. He's a creator. You cannot divide people on the basis of religion. If religion was to be a dividing factor, then Bangladesh would never have been created.
What is your message to the tourists, sir? You will understand that tourists are fearful now. They are leaving the valley in droves. This was expected to be the big bumper tourist season in the Kashmir Valley. What will you tell those grief-stricken victims as well as those who have... Yes, go ahead.
Tell them, by not coming, you are going to win the battle that Pakistan is trying to win. Come in larger numbers so that we can tell them that you cannot deter us. This is our land, and we are going to come in herds here. Don't be afraid. We have to fight them. And by not coming, you are already given to Pakistan acts.
Sir, there are those who are calling today for ministerial resignations, that the Home Minister must be held accountable. There were intelligence lapses. What's your view? Should this be a moment to play politics, or is this a moment to stand united in grief and anger?
I think we should stand united and not try to put fingers at each other. Not. This is the moment when nation must stand together, as they stood together when Kargil war took place. We need that unity today. We need that understanding between each other. Hold each other's hand and show our enemy that we are not going to be defeated. We are not going to accept your hegemony. You know, I didn't give an interview to any media. I gave of this interview because you're one man in this country who stands for truth, who stands for brotherhood, who stands for unity of every man. That is why I gave you this interview, because I'm proud of you.
So
that you're not afraid to use your word.
Sir, my thoughts though today, I'm very kind, sir, but my thoughts today are with the victims, with the families, and with the people who have lost their near and dear ones, as I'm sure are your thoughts and prayers as well, Dr. Abdullah.
Absolutely, Rajdeep. I cannot tell you how much I didn't have the words. I can't even think that such a thing could happen to people who had gone for enjoyment and they had to meet their death. It just shook me. I'm still not normal. I don't think I'll be normal ever, what they have done.
Dr. Abdullah, I understand. I know that your pain and anguish, you told me this morning also, is genuine. You haven't slept all night. You said you were shaken by what's happened, as the nation has been. But as you rightly said, this is a moment also for collective resolve and to send out a firm message to those who try and divide us. Farooq Abdullah, for joining me here today.
We are not going to bow. That they should understand.
Yes, sir. Dr. Farooq Abdullah, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Raji. Thank you.
Okay, my next guest is also a very special one. I'm joined by General VP Malik, former Chief of Army Staff. He was Chief of Army Staff when the Kargil operation took place. General Malik, thank you very much for joining us. As you can well understand, a lot of anger, grief after this horrific massacre in Phelgamm. What, according to you, is the right way to respond to what, by all accounts, is yet another example of Pakistan-sponsored terror targeting innocent civilians this time?
Good evening, Rajdeep. I think first thing we have to face some truths. The truth is that our Western neighbor, Pakistan, they have always been encouraging jihadi elements, anti-Indian attitude, and now also anti-Hindu attitude. You have covered Asim Munir's open public statement where he has said that two-nation theory has to stay, or he wants that, he believes in that, and also that Hindus and Muslims are totally apart. And now this kind of a thing, the attitude from the other side, the mindset is now getting aggravated, and it is encouraging the terrorist element, which the ISI has been harboring and supporting. So the truth is that we have to face these incidents, isolated terrorist attacks. They have been going on for last so many years, and they will probably continue to do so. Although we need to carry out deterrence, we need to also live with them. So that is the state of affairs today.
2 points coming from what you're saying. First, you're linking in a way the terror attack to what General Munir said last week. You almost seem to believe that this is General Munir directing these terrorists who targeted Hindus in this terror attack. So it is General Munir's mindset now being transplanted in these terrorists. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. And General Munir also controls Pakistan, as we all know. So he controls the ISI, and the ISI controls Lashkar-e-Taiba and all other terrorist outfits. So when he's sending an open message that Hindus are different to us, and so this time what you have seen is that people have tried to identify it not as tourists but as Hindus, and then they have killed them.
So we come then to the question of the response. As we saw after Uri, there were surgical strikes. After Pulwama, we saw Balakot. But clearly, Pakistan does not seem to be deterred from sponsoring terror. So given what we've done in the past, how do we now go up a seeming escalator ladder to, in a way, send out a stronger message to Islamabad, to Rawalpindi?
Rajdeep, firstly, I have to emphasize that as a nation, we have to make use of all options and instruments that are available with the state, which means political, economic, diplomatic, and military. So we have to consider all those aspects when we are now thinking of taking action against Pakistan. But before that, let me also look at the protective measures. And those are, we have to investigate whether our unified command in J&K, is it functioning properly? Is it functioning effectively? Which means, what about the intelligence? Why we have not been able to gather any intelligence about these people who have come from across the border, or there are some overground workers who have helped them. So that is one. Second is deployment. Why have we not deployed adequate number of troops in these areas when we know that this is the tourist season and people will be going all over? Why only emphasis on Srinagar and Amarnath Yatra, or when the VIPs goes there? We should have also considered deployment of troops or policemen, whatever, in these areas, which apparently did not happen. So those are the protective measures which need to be investigated, which need to be assessed, and then effective measures have to be taken. That is the protection part of it. Now I come to the offensive part, the deterrence part of it. We cannot just do once in a while action like Balakot or surgical strike. Those have to be repeated whenever there is an action, whenever there is an activity from the other side, or whenever we consider that the red line has been crossed. We crossed the red line in 26 when 26/11 incident took place. And I believe that today also we have crossed the red line. And therefore, some kind of a message, some kind of a strong, effective action has to be taken, whether it is against the Pakistani army establishment or jihadi elements and their infrastructure. Now, how we take it again, it is a all-inclusive activity in which we have to Army, Navy, Air Force, and everybody else has to consider. It is not only Army alone, or Navy alone, or Air Force alone. And this this is what that is.
So what you're telling me is that this is a two-pronged approach in a way. One, fix accountability for lapses here on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir, and two, make sure that there is clear action, actionable taken against Pakistan for the manner in which they continue to harbor terrorists. Am I correct? Am I interpreting you correctly?
Yes, Rajdeep. Lapses, if they have occurred, people must be accountable for that. That is the protective part. And as far as the other part is concerned, you are right. All-inclusive approach to take some action against Pakistan perpetrators who have
But do you see,
the mastermind.
but what would that, the question of course arises as we've seen surgical strike, I repeat, surgical strikes took place, Balakot took place. It hasn't deterred the Pakistani state. This is a state, as General Munir's statement made very clear, which is obsessed with the idea of in some way bleeding India and trying to drive a wedge in on this occasion between Hindus and Muslims in this country.
So therefore, you see, we are only trying to have some deterrent in this in place. And once, as I said earlier, that just one incident, one reaction or two reactions like Balakot and surgical strike, that is not good enough. Whenever something of this nature occurs, we should be quite prepared to launch our own offensive activity, proactive activity against Pakistani elements. And I think the time has now come for this. And mind you, even despite all that, you may not be able to eliminate counter cross-border terrorism. You will probably deter them, it might reduce, but I don't think you can totally eliminate that by taking these actions.
And you're confident that our armed forces have enough strength and resilience to take on whatever challenge may be offered by the other side of the border. Am I correct?
Yes. Armed forces are part of the state, and our nation state has that capacity, has that capability to cause harm on the other side whenever this kind of a deterrent is required. Deterrent action has to be taken.
Right. So proportionate action to what we've seen in Phelgamm is necessary to send out a firm, unequivocal message to Pakistan. At the same time, lapses on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir need to be fixed. General Malik, for joining me and giving me your perspective. Appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The military options that might exist, but the real key now is diplomacy. We've already seen a little while ago the government of India announcing a series of diplomatic measures against Pakistan. Will India's diplomatic strike work? Was it really, in the end, a glaring security and intelligence failure in Phelgamm that needs to be addressed? And who will be held accountable? And of course, how should India respond to Pakistan terror? Two special guests now joining me. Yashovardhan Azad is former Secretary Security Special Director at the Intelligence Bureau, and Vivek Kaju is former Secretary Ministry of External Affairs. Appreciate both of you joining us. I want first Mr. Kaju, to you to respond to what you've just heard from the Ministry of External Affairs in terms of diplomatic measures being taken. No visas to Pakistani nationals, cancelling of the Indus Water Treaty, stop at Atari Wagah border. Do you believe these steps will work?
3 points. First, the Indus Waters Treaty being held in abeyance is unprecedented. Even during times of war, the IWT was not touched. I don't think it's going to have a practical manifestation immediately, but symbolically it's important because water is an important issue for Pakistan. So it is a signal to the Pakistanis. Second, the doors are being shut on the Pakistanis, but not entirely, because while the defense attaches have been removed, you would note that there was no mention that the weekly contact between the DGMOs has been suspended. I think that is a very, very crucial point, so that it is indicative that both sides, that the government of India wants some contact to be maintained between the armies. Third, as far as visas are concerned, again, it's part of closing the doors, the Atari border closing the doors. So this is the first step. I think the government needs to assuage public sentiment to some extent. So it has taken some of these steps, but that is
Right.
not the real point. Just give me 1 second, Rajdeep. And that the point is that whenever there has, in the two previous cases, when India judged attacks to be unacceptable, it took kinetic action. Uri, Pulwama. I think this attack which should have been anticipated, because the Pakistanis made it abundantly clear after the Jafar Express attack, which they blamed India for, through that India had provoked the BLA to attack us. At that stage, the Pakistanis were quite clear, and I've written about this. So, in this case, I think what we are trying to do is to do a holding action, but ultimately, because this is an unacceptable attack, based on the past two precedents, I do not see how the public in India, or public opinion in India, will accept anything less than a kinetic action against the Pakistanis, the kind of kinetic action that the government will have to decide very, very carefully. But the precedents are there. And will the people be satisfied with what the Foreign Secretary announced today? I can assure you, no.
Okay. I'm going to come to the Baluchistan point later, because that's an interesting point. Has Pakistan retaliated for what they believe was Indian involvement in that train terror strike that the BLA pulled off in Baluchistan? But Yashovardhan Azad, you've worked carefully with intelligence. In all of this, while the focus is on India's diplomatic strike, it's on in some way assuaging public sentiment. There are questions about accountability, about intelligence failures. Should those be asked today or not?
Well, you know, this is a regular exercise, intelligence failures, who was accountable. But right now, it's a make and break situation, Rajdeep, that is going to be held in a routine manner. Today, the question is, in 1.5 days, we have been waffling about many things. I think clarity should be there in what should be done now. And I totally agree with you when you talk about the options straight away. Let me give you 3 straight options. Let me ask you, what is the benefit of ceasefire which we are having since 2021? It has helped the Pakistani troops to move about 70 to 80,000 on the Afghan border. It has helped them to commit savagery against the Baluchis by diverting a large part of the army over there. It has given them tremendous respite to be able to train and send properly and arm all these Lashkar-e-Taiba coverts, whether you call them TRF or something. How is it benefiting us? Earlier on, whenever there were cross-border violations, the BSF used to pound their posts across the border. It is time to finish this kind of this exercise, this fraud, which is only helping. That is number one. Number two, the cost should also be made very, very high in covert ways, which we should push further. And number three, NIA, after, I'm sure with the security grid we have, will be able to catch these guys, and then we should inform every world capital about their complicity and then do an official attack. This is a time when the entire world is with you, except perhaps Turkey or China, maybe one odd country. And if you don't attack now, take out those 12 or 13, Lashkar-e-Taiba and JM hideouts openly. tomorrow, I think we'll be in a
Easier,
very sad position.
easier said than done, of course, that it
Absolutely.
is high risk, but
Yes,
you're saying that is a risk worth taking.
it's a
Vivek
risk.
Kaju,
Yeah.
Vivek Kaju, you mentioned about your belief that this could have been a retaliation for what happened last month in Baluchistan, the Pakistan army embarrassed and chafing at the bit. Do you believe, therefore, we should have been prepared for Phelgamm? Is that a message in a way that you're sending? There should have been there should have been a recognition that the Pakistan army would be up to mischief.
Rajdeep, I entirely agree with what was said earlier that this is a time for national solidarity. This is not a time for exhuming either the recent or the remote past. We all have to stand as one. But since you've asked me this question, I wrote an article. It's on record.
I saw it.
So
are you convinced that there is a link between what happened in Baluchistan, where the Pakistani army blamed India, and what has now happened? Is that what you're saying?
That is what I was afraid of. That is why I wrote that it is possible that in the foreseeable future, the Pakistanis would engineer or sponsor a terrorist attack against us. You've seen it. I also wrote in that article, as you would have noticed, that the government of India would have taken note of this. Our agencies would have taken note of it. And I made some suggestions of what we should do, including putting the Pakistanis on notice and putting world capitals informing world capitals that if there is an escalation, that we've nothing to do with this BLA attack, but if there's an escalation from the Pakistan side, then it will be Pakistan's responsibility if the escalatory ladder is
but how far? But that comes, here you've got Yashovardhan Azad saying we should be willing to go on an offensive. This is time for war in a way. Do you believe that that is possible? That's a realistic option between two nuclear neighbors?
Look, this is always a dilemma, but I do believe that under what is called the nuclear overhang, there is space for action. The Pakistanis, on the other hand, have always pressed the international community that it is much too dangerous for any kind of kinetic action, because the escalatory ladder can be used or will be invoked. My point has always been that the first step on an escalatory ladder is a terrorist attack like the kind which took place in Phelgamm yesterday. We have, unfortunately, after the Pulwama attack, while we announced a doctrine of preemption, we did not press that doctrine of preemption. We did not make the world aware that, listen, this is our doctrine now. I do believe that at the right time, today is the time for the nation to stand as one, to be behind the government, to be with them on whatever decision they take. And I do believe that Mr. Modi and the CCS will be left with no option but to take some form of kinetic action. And that, the nation must stand firm. But at the right time, we've got to make our doctrines known to the world. That is how major powers, and a responsible power like India, a country which is the 5th largest economy, as we often say, on the path to being the 3rd largest economy, conducts itself.
Okay, can I get Yashovardhan Azad then to give a final word? Yashovardhan Azad, do you believe that these are risks worth taking, that this is a moment, or is this a move for a gradual escalatory spiral? Today we've had a diplomatic strike, cancel the Indus Water Treaty, go up the escalatory ladder and see where it takes us. The Pakistanis are already denying any involvement.
Rajdeep, the savagery which has happened in Phelgamm is reminiscent of the Islamist hardline terrorist actions by the ISIS. The ISIS and these terrorist outfits will not understand your diplomatic parleys, will not understand your gradual calibrated response and things like that. It will appreciate a hard strike. Today the country is absolutely pulverized after what happened in the Mumbai attacks. Since then, we have never seen a carnage like this. if you don't respond now and you keep yourself, fearing the so-called nuclear blackmail, which is always behind your ear. Pakistan will always do it. But today is the time to strike. This is the way you can do it. Cut the ceasefire agreement. It doesn't help us in any way. Today, the world capitals are with you. This is an opportune time, and make it official and open. Rather not live with this kind of, regular attacks, especially of this kind, in which the nation is attacking you and the international community.
We'll have much more with you and other guests in the days ahead, looking at specifics of how India should respond. Clearly, a red line is being drawn in the sand with what has happened in Phelgamm. But Vivek Kaju and Yashovardhan Azad, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with me here today. At the end of the day, for all the hope of a response that is proportionate, the real grief is that of the 28 innocent lives lost in one of the deadliest terror attacks in recent times. The stories they hope to bring back as tourists from Kashmir, the enjoyment of joy of being in the verdant meadows of Phelgamm, are now shrouded in grief and silence. These are the stories of the victims of Phelgamm.
28 Indian civilians on a vacation with their family to Kashmir now return in coffins. Identified as Hindus, shot dead at point-blank range in Pakistan's sponsored radical Islamist terror attack. Among them, 3 newly married couples, now survived by young grieving widows. 26-year-old Lieutenant Vinay Narwal, an Indian Navy officer, got married only a week back and was on honeymoon with his wife. Posted in Kochi, he had joined the Navy just 2 years ago and was known among peers and superiors as a dedicated and promising officer.
क्या बोलते भेलपुरी खाने से मेरा पति साइड में था एक इंसान है उसने उसको गोली मार दी यहाँ पे उसने बोला कि ये शायद मुस्लिम नहीं है उसने उसको गोली मार दी.
This heart-wrenching moment captured of his young widow sitting by Narwal's mortal remains has turned into a defining image of the Phelgamm carnage. Himanshi now returns home with her husband in a coffin. Shubham Dwivedi got married in February, and now his young widow heads home alone with her husband's coffin. Playing cards at a hotel in Kashmir. Soon these happy moments with the extended family turned to horror. Shubham was gunned down in front of his wife after terrorists identified him as a Hindu. Among the 3 dead from Karnataka was 47-year-old Manjunath Rao from Shimoga. Hours after enjoying a serene shikara ride on the Dal Lake, their visit to Phelgamm proved fatal. Manjunath's wife urged the terrorists to kill her too. and in turn received a mocking response from the armed jihadists. She was being spared to tell the government about this massacre. 28 dead, leaving behind widows and children who watched the men of their family targeted. A nightmare that India will never forget. Bureau Report, India Today.
Truly saddening images there. My take. It is 24 hours now since the horrific massacre in Phelgamm that claimed at least 28 innocent lives. There is grief, and yes, there is understandable rage. This is a wake-up call for all those who mistakenly thought that simply the removal of Article 370 had restored normalcy in the Kashmir Valley. Let's get this straight. Normalcy and cross-border terror cannot coexist. Fact is, Pakistan-sponsored Lashkar groups have got away with terror for too long with too few costs. The first step, therefore, must be to ensure that the foot soldiers and their patrons are brought to justice. How this is to be done is best left to our security agencies. This is not a time for political finger pointing, but accountability for lapses must be eventually fixed. Ministerial resignations will not end the menace of cross-border terror, nor will high-pitched rhetoric here in TV studios. What is needed is maturity, not recklessness. It is very easy for me to call for revenge in a TV studio. What is more difficult is to ensure that Pakistan doesn't succeed in its attempt to drive a wedge between Hindus and Muslims amongst each and every one of us. Our strength of this great country of India is in our unity in Kashmir and beyond in every corner of India. The message, therefore, to a rogue and dysfunctional Pakistani army state must be loud and clear. India's resolve to fight terror will not weaken. This fight cannot be waged by directing our ire at Indian Muslims or indeed at Kashmiri brothers and sisters, all of whom are speaking out strongly today against terrorists. This fight is against a country whose army chief used the most obnoxious jingoistic language only a few days ago while claiming Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. Well, General Munir, India is proof of religious coexistence. Pakistan is an example of how shielding terrorists enfeebles and weakens a nation beyond repair. The blood of our countrymen in Phelgamm will not go in vain. Jai Hind, Namaskar.